Got a very interesting package in the mail from Michael Shermer. I've debated Michael Shermer 3 times. Business Reply, the Skeptics Society in Altadena, California. Michael Shermer. Like I said, I've debated him 3 times. And if your donation matters, a note from Michael Shermer, Executive Director of Your Skeptics Society. 2015 was another great year for science, skepticism, and critical thinking. Thanks for your continuing support. We are looking forward to 2016 and are pleased to tell you about our new project aimed at public understanding of science. Michael, I wish you did understand science. You somehow think evolution is part of science. Evolution is a religion that you believe in. We've talked about this publicly on 3 different debates that you don't get it. I think we do understand science. Science means knowledge. Things we know by observation, testing, experimentation. So, anyway, Michael Shermer is going to have, for those who donate $500 to the Skeptics Society, you get to come to enjoy a fundraising, wine tasting, dinner, and star party at Michael Shermer's house overlooking the city. For donations of $500 or more, you're invited to join Michael Shermer at his cliffside home, where he hosts a fundraising dinner party and wine tasting event. Have a spectacular view, sunset view, of all of Southern California with an 8-inch Meade telescope for stargazing. Call our office, got the phone number here, Michael Shermer. Inside here, though, it folds out to be things you should be skeptical of. And so, I agree, Michael, you should be skeptical of that stupid evolution religion. One of the things you should be skeptical of is, number 8, creationism. He's correct on some of these. You should be be skeptical about UFOs visiting the planet. You should be skeptical about the 9/11 conspiracy. Yes, I think there maybe was one. It's worth looking into. So he's got 10 things to be skeptical of. The JFK conspiracy, morphic resonance, Holocaust denial. People who deny there was a Holocaust. And there are some who say the Holocaust never happened. But I want to look at number 8 here just for a minute. This is... Michael, we need to have a long talk. Again, maybe someday you'll get it. Unless maybe you have to keep that belief of yours to keep the fundraising going. Is that really what it's all about? The wine tasting and the fundraising? I don't know. Okay. The argumentum ad ignorantium, in other words, you're ignorant if you argue this. You have to use the Latin words to look, smart. Okay. Latin's a dead language. Killed the Romans, now it's killing us. The argumentum ad ignorantum, employed by alien and UFO proponents, is actually an old one used by evolution deniers. Evolution deniers. Rather than creationists, think about those words, those 2 words together, evolution deniers. Doesn't that somehow try to get across, or convey the message that, well, evolution's a fact, how could you possibly deny it? Rather than say non-believers in evolution or believers in creationism or skeptics of evolution, I mean, you're the Skeptic Society, why don't you use the word evolution skeptics? Why evolution deniers, as if you're trying to give evolution some credibility, like it's some kind of fact? Just the way you phrase it. Like, you got to be stupid to deny evolution. I mean, hello, obviously everybody believes in this. That's the mess. Obviously, I know that's the message you're trying to get across. Better known as creationists, or intelligent design theorists, who make what are called God of the gaps arguments. Whenever there is a gap in scientific knowledge, there is evidence of divine design. The problem with all such arguments from ignorance, or gaps, is what happens to your theory when the gaps are filled. In science, for a new theory to be accepted, it's not enough to only identify the gaps in the prevailing theory, negative evidence. Proponents must provide positive evidence in favor of their new theory. This is what creationists have failed to do ever since Darwin published his theory in 1859. Denying that evolution happened, denying that natural selection suffices as a mechanism of evolutionary change. Now, we could spend 3 years on each one of these, but denying that evolution happened. Which definition of evolution are you talking about, Michael? I cover this very clearly, and it frustrates the atheists to death, and they say, we don't believe in 6 kinds of evolution. Yes, you do. You do, and don't want to admit it. Cosmic evolution, chemical evolution, stellar evolution, organic, macro, and micro. They love to talk about micro because it's obvious it happens. Dogs and wolves and coyotes probably had a common ancestor. I don't think we should call it microevolution. We should call it variation within the kind. And somebody said in one of the comments here, well, what's a kind? Well, the Bible tells us if they can bring forth, they're the same kind. A horse and a zebra can mate and bring forth offspring. Now, the offspring may be infertile. It doesn't matter. They mated and brought forth. A horse and a banana cannot. A horse and a cow cannot. A horse and a turtle cannot. Okay, they're obviously different kinds. And I think most of the division lines would be just like real obvious to a 5-year-old. Okay, there may be a few tough ones we'd have to work on. That would be a good field of endeavor for science to get into. But most of them, I mean, like in the high 99 percentile, are obvious to a 5-year-old. That's the same kind of animal. Okay, show any kid a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana like I do on my video number 4 and ask them, which one is not like the others? I've had 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds get it right. Yeah, it's the bananas, not like the other ones. Okay. Anyway, Michael, I'm going to finish this because I don't know if I'm an evolution denier. Depends what you mean. What do you mean by evolution? Let's define that term. I believe variations happen. I believe the variations are limited. I think they've been trying for years to get smaller dogs so some grandma can put it on her lap. Okay. They've got dogs now, little bitty teacup poodles or whatever they call the dumb thing. That's pretty small, okay? Do you think they'll ever get a dog as small as a flea or an atom or a molecule? No, I would say there is a limit to the size where it will no longer function and be dog. What about big dogs like the Mastiff, okay? Do you think they'll ever get a dog as big as Texas or the United States or the world? No, I think there's a limit in there. I don't know where the limit is, and I don't know if they reached it, but I suspect they're probably close to the limit, okay? So here we have dogs that vary in size from the teacup poodle to the Mastiff. Let's say from 1 pound to 200 pound. Okay. Well, where is the 1 ounce dog or the 2,000 ton dog? The whole point of this illustration to try to get people to understand there are limits to the variations. Okay, I agree. They get smaller horses. We had one of the world's smallest horses visit our dinosaur adventureland, 17 inches tall. And they got some pretty big horses out there. Clydesdale and whatever the other one is, the draft horse. Okay. Well, I agree. Horses vary in size. Do you think you'll ever get a horse as big as Texas? No. Okay. There are limits. The evolutionist will not admit, I've never had one admit, there are limits to these changes. Michael, you are saying there are creationists denying that natural selection suffices as a mechanism of evolutionary change. Do you think natural selection will ever change a dog into a dog the size of Texas? I'm hoping you'll be smart enough to say you're probably right, Kent. Evolution, natural selection will never select dogs to get bigger than Texas, okay? I hope we can agree on at least that. Just admit there are limits to these changes. Natural selection, now think about it, just listen carefully now. Natural selection selects. It doesn't create, it selects. So if there's 1,000 dogs loose on an island and some of the dogs have thick fur and some don't have much fur, and it gets really, really cold for 3 weeks in a row, and all the thin fur ones freeze to death and die. Okay, the thick-furred ones were selected for survival by nature, natural selection. I agree. Natural selection works just fine. I believe in natural selection, but it doesn't create anything. Natural selection will select the fastest deer to survive when the coyotes are chasing them. I agree. But the deer will never get wings and fly because of natural selection. It doesn't create anything new. They deny that natural selection suffices as a mechanism of evolutionary change. This is way too general of a statement. I agree natural selection works. I agree it selects and changes a population to be like all thick-furred dogs or all skinny dogs or all faster horses or whatever. Sure, but it's selecting something already in the gene code. It's not putting wings on the horse or making the dog as big as Texas. They deny macroevolution while accepting microevolution. I am guilty. I agree. Microevolution, variation within the kind happens. Macroevolution is a fairy tale. It's a dream. It's stupid. It is not part of science. It is never observed. Now, Michael, and your skeptic, fellow skeptic, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I don't care what you believe. But don't call it science, and don't make all of us pay to put that in the textbook so the kids can learn that junk as if it's part of science. It's not part of science. It's a religion. Admit it. You are a religious zealot. And that's fine. Praise the God you don't believe in. Okay. Denying transitional fossils. Okay, I'm guilty. Michael, I deny there are any fossils that prove any transition from one kind to another for obvious, common sense, third grade level reasons. When you find bones in the dirt, you find a fossil. All you know is it died. You can't prove it had any children. There's certainly no date on these fossils. I have hundreds, probably thousands of fossils in our boxes in our museum here. Okay. Yeah, fossils occur in the ground. I agree. What do they say? They don't talk. No sign on them. We got to put our interpretation on this, okay? So somebody puts an interpretation on it and makes a conclusion of something about this fossil. But when you find a bone in the dirt, really all you know is it died. You can't prove it had any children. And you sure can't prove it had different children than its own kind. All we ever see are dogs produce dogs, cats produce cats. So denying transitional fossils, guilty. I deny there are any transitional fossils. None would hold up in a court of law with an honest judge for 2 seconds. Denying embryology. Michael, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. If you're still teaching embryology is evidence for evolution, you are lying through your teeth, okay? Embryology, the idea that similar embryos, like the gill slits, is that what you're implying here, that humans have gill slits and used to be a fish? That was proven wrong in 1874. 1874. Get up to date, Michael. Quit lying to your fellow skeptics and saying embryology is evidence for evolution. Denying embryology. I deny that the study of embryos, embryology, I deny that that offers any help for the evolution theory. I deny that, okay? Comparative anatomy. Here you go again. That's what the textbooks teach, comparative anatomy. We just scanned those pages in last night. Where did we put that book? I don't know. It's around here in my piling system someplace, but we scanned in a bunch of pages from a 2015 textbook saying that the similar bone structure of different animals, 2 bones in the forearm, 1 in the humerus, the radius, the ulna, etc., that proves evolution. No, it does not. It proves a common designer. Or it proves neither. The fact that there are similarities can be interpreted for either common ancestor or common designer. You choose which one you want to believe, but it's not evidence. It's certainly not proof of evolution. Denying comparative anatomy. Comparative physiology. Denying biogeography. Oh, because certain animals in a certain region all look alike, bio meaning life, geography, geo meaning earth, and graphy meaning to write, the mapping of the earth. So biogeography is supposed to somehow prove evolution? Similarity of all living things adds up to a lot of denial in order to rescue religious beliefs from the onslaught of convergent evidence from so many lines of inquiry. Michael, I really suspect that you really believe this stuff. I think you've talked yourself into it. Now, we've debated 3 times. Here's Kent Hovind's challenge. 63 years old in 3 days, the 15th. Okay. I will challenge you to a debate in front of any audience, if we can get a large audience, okay? I don't want to come for 2 people, okay? But you set up the venue, and we'll have another debate on creation evolution. I'll go over your little pamphlet here, line by line, word by word, and tear it to shreds in front of any intelligent audience and say, folks, this guy is a religious zealot, and you are. You are a religious zealot. So am I. And that's good, but I admit it, and you don't. So, open challenge, Michael, anytime, anywhere. Half my brain tied behind my back to make it fair. This also makes the list because of its popularity. Polls consistently show 40 to 45% of Americans believe in young Earth creationism. Guilty. Another 40 to 45% believe God guides evolution. Well, you got to define what you mean by evolution. God guides. Well, God set some systems in order where every animal can produce a bunch of babies that maybe have a little variety, and some are more likely to survive. That's planning ahead. Did you know my van out there, 233,000 miles on it, it has a heater and an air conditioner. Now think about it. Think about it. They do the opposite. One heats it, one cools it. Why would General Motors put a heater and an air conditioner in the same vehicle? Well, because they're planning ahead, you know. They don't know if it's going to go to cold climate or warm climate. So put them both in there. Like, duh. Well, God designed his creatures so they can survive in a wide variety of environments. And some have offspring that are more likely to survive in a warm environment or a cold environment or whatever. Sure, natural selection selects the most likely to survive in that environment. It doesn't create anything, and it's certainly not evidence for evolution. The rest take a strictly materialistic, non-supernatural view of evolution. And these groups, they lobby school boards, they teach the controversy, give equal time to creationism. Michael, challenge is on. Anytime, anywhere. You can have 100 assistants on your side. 100 against 1. Well, 101 against 1. Okay. On 2 conditions. I get half the time, and we discuss one topic at a time. When you've had enough and say, okay, let's go on to the next topic. I surrender. Kent's right. We'll go on to the next topic. Okay? Sweetly. In Christian love. All right. That was exciting. I love getting... I don't know who put me on the mailing list to get Skeptic Society mail, but thank you. Appreciate that. I love it. I'm sure somebody send this on to Michael in California. Let's see. Skeptic Society in Post Office Box 338. Altadena, Altadena, California. Send him a letter. Say, hey, watch Kent's program. He's challenging you to a debate again. We've had 3. I don't think he'll do it again. I predict he won't, but if he will, bring it on. We're ready.